Hi, you're watching Anyverse English. In heaven, inhabitants need not concern themselves with those dwelling in hell. Jus, a dwarf, glances at his watch and murmurs to a visibly alarmed individual, "Solid advice." Meanwhile, the protagonist, driven to the point of bleeding by incessant scratching, contemplates, "How would I feel if I were condemned to hell?" The phrase, "watch to the end," echoes incessantly in his mind, reminding him, those in hell fixate on heaven without respite. A yellow dye materializes before the protagonist, urging him to glimpse the alternate world's conclusion. Confusion and fear shroud the protagonist's face as he lies barefoot and ragged upon a cave's rocky floor, beside a sign proclaiming the world's end. Dreaming, Shin Hyeon and Yun? Yunyul seems drained. A voice remarks, "Shin Hyeon, is that my name?" The protagonist queries. "Yes, it is. I'm Shin Hyeon. Let Yunyul rest until we're home. She's a nuisance to her elder brother," the voice replies. "That recurring dream," Shin Hyeon ruminates. "The night my family's car collided with another, occupied by a young man and a little girl. When the hero awoke, he was alone, surrounded by a familiar yet aged environment. Time had slipped away unnoticed. Despite the unchanged surroundings, years had elapsed. Amidst the desolate cave, he discovered a solitary artifact, the art of cultivating heavenly origin martial arts, accompanied by a cryptic message, to return home, watch until the end. Mastering this book, could it lead me back to my family? He pondered, overwhelmed. A sudden yellow bar materialized. "Congratulations, you have completed the training." In disbelief, Shin Hyeon gasped, "I've done it. It's over. Dad, Mom, Yun, I'm coming." As the door materialized, Shin Hyeon realized this place wasn't the world's end. Emerging from the cave, he beheld Mir, a picturesque town in verdant woods. It marked not the conclusion but the genesis of his journey. Despite grappling with "why me?" for a decade, Shin Hyeon now faced a new query: how to navigate this world's end. "Hey, young man." A stranger's voice shattered his reverie. Startled, Shin Hyeon was confronted by the odd attire of the newcomer. Claiming hunger, the ragamuffin brandished a sword, politely requesting a grisly offering: Shimon's flesh. Shin Hyeon is horrified by the unfolding tragedy, his hands trembling as the blood-stained sword slips from his grasp. Sitting back, overwhelmed, he disavows responsibility, repeating it's not his fault while tormenting thoughts race through his mind. Suddenly, a die materializes. "Your external skill has increased." External skill. Shin Hyeon is dumbfounded. He's taken a life, yet his skill has surged. Hysterical laughter erupts from him, a mix of shock and disbelief. In that moment, clarity dawns. The art of cultivating heavenly origin martial arts holds the key to his return. It must be mastered to its zenith. In the present, Shin Hyeon, visibly transformed, wears a confident smile as he seeks out his challenger. Learning it's the leader of a demonic cult, Supreme Sword Emperor Cha Shin-hil, he confronts the kneeling adversary with a sword in hand. "Which generation of demonic cult do you lead?" he demands, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "The 8th. Well, given that those I've dispatched hailed from the 6th and 7th, the High Emperor muses, counting on his fingers, I'm rather proud of these persistent souls, returning like clockwork every few decades to face their fate." "All right, enough fun," Shin Hyeon declares before swiftly dispatching the cultist leader with a decisive blow, severing his head. In the aftermath, the deceased villain's ward denounces the Supreme Sword Emperor as demon-like and charges at him. Shin Hyeon, puzzled by the cultist's choice of words, acknowledges the bravery of his opponent. "I admire your courage, child," he says, locking eyes with the cultist. With a firm grip, he pushes the cultist away, who struggles fruitlessly against an impenetrable barrier of white energy before him. Shin Hyeon fixes a stern gaze upon his defeated adversary, concealed behind the barrier. He extends his hand towards the cultist's face, delivering a sharp rebuke. No matter how many years or decades demon worshippers strive to regain their strength, they'll never succeed. Suggesting the cultist return with new tricks to amuse the Supreme Sword Emperor, he appoints him as the new cult leader before sauntering away, chuckling to himself. The leader of the demonic cult proved disappointingly frail this time. Shin Hyeon reflects, leaning against a tree. He contemplates how to alleviate his boredom. Perhaps founding an evil sect with the most skilled martial artists could inject some excitement into his dreary existence. Why does everything feel so mundane and uninspiring? It's been 140 years of this tedious life. Over time, everything that once held meaning has faded away. Initially driven to reach the end of this world, Shin Hyeon now struggles to recall the faces of his relatives from his past life. There's no longer any paradise he longs for. Every day feels like hell. Yes, that's enough. It's time to bring everything to a close, Shin says, gazing sadly into the distance. Suddenly, he senses a shift. A pop-up notification indicates that both his internal and external skills have reached the maximum level of 50. Below, a congratulatory message confirms his achievement of the highest level. Then, another window appears, detailing the removal of the restrictive condition, ascension to the level of deity. Immediately following, a third window announces his return to Earth. Shin Hyeon is stunned to the core. After all these years, he bursts into hysterical laughter. Are they pitying him because he gave up? Is this some kind of joke? Ascension to the level of deity? Does this mean I'm now equal to God? Yet, it feels surreal. If he's free from all earthly desires, why is he overwhelmed with emotions? More than he's ever experienced before. Shin Hyeon reminisces about his family. Their faces fade from his memory with time. They're likely long gone by now. His desire to return home vanished long ago, leaving only a heart consumed by vengeance. Another die appears, presenting a choice. Do you want to return to your home world? Take revenge on the man who condemned Shin Hyeon to this hell? Filled with rage, the hero is engulfed in a swirling vortex of white energy. I'll kill them all. Every last one of them. Whoever they are, whatever it takes, I'll kill them. Cracks form within the light, multiplying rapidly until the brilliance fades. Supreme Sword Emperor Shin Hyeon, after 140 years in Miami, returns to Earth. In 2025 Korea, within the Red Wolf dungeon, a girl rains down arrows glowing with energy from above. She observes as red wolves pursue a desperate young man, their eyes ablaze with malice. With precise aim, she releases another projectile, earning the notification, Archer Skill, Strong Arrow. One by one, she dispatches the monsters, rescuing the terrified warrior clad in light protective gear. She calls out to her squad members, and a young boy responds, addressing her as Chon. Relieved that she arrived in time, the girl offers to rally the entire squad and evacuate swiftly. The young man is grateful for her leadership, attempting to express his thanks to Yunal, but before he can, a massive red wolf seizes him by the neck. The girl's cry of despair echoes through the clearing as she watches Mr. Bingo perish. His lifeless hand falls to the grass, signaling the start of a brutal massacre. The red wolves mercilessly tear through the squad, seemingly under the command of Cha Yun. Screams for help mingle with the flow of blood, painting a horrifying scene of carnage. It's evident to the girl that the battle is lost. The relentless tide of red monsters shows no sign of abating, with one fallen comrade replaced by another. The mana pool is dwindling, Yunal realizes, knowing that just a bit more and she'll be able to go on a date with the creator. Amidst the chaos of battle, someone manages to escape. Spotting her companion, Seoyeon, fleeing the battlefield, Yunal shouts at the top of her lungs, but her pursuit is hindered by the encroaching red wolves. Looks like this truly is the end, she thinks grimly as she loads another arrow. Meanwhile, Cha Yun curses vehemently as he flees from the dire wolves. He berates himself for his recklessness in joining the squad. If he had stayed put, he wouldn't be facing the same fate, torn apart by the wolves. Spotting a glowing portal ahead, he races towards it, only to be halted by an arrow landing at his feet. Staggering back to avoid the flying debris, the coward looks up to see Chon, who has finally managed to break free from the wolves. "Where do you think you're going?" she shouts. her voice dripping with anger. Imin puts on a fake voice, claiming he's relieved to see the girl alive, and urges her to calm down. Yunil grabs him by the front of his shirt, her indignation pouring out as she berates him for not heeding her warnings about the dangerous battle with the Red Wolves. She accuses him, in tears, of being responsible for the deaths of their comrades. But her words fall on deaf ears. Yun rudely retorts that the problems of the dead are not his concern. He escaped, and that's all that matters to him. That's the true Seo-yun, Yunil declares bitterly. She acknowledges the futility of reasoning with him and invites him to return, eager to witness her father's reaction. Promising to share what transpires upon her return, she starts to leave, sending a shiver down Yun's spine. He calls out to stop her. A notification appears, Stonebreaker fighter skill. Yun, his eyes wild with madness, delivers a powerful blow to Yunil's chest, sending her flying and causing her to drop her bow. Stunned, Yunil watches helplessly, unable to intervene. Gasping for air, Yunil finds herself at Richard's mercy as he cruelly lifts her head by the hair. With a cynical smirk, he chastises her for daring to challenge him, claiming she lacks even the most basic understanding. He suggests that her ego was inflated by someone else's praise. However, he offers a twisted proposition to help elevate her reputation by painting her as a selfish leader who sabotaged the squad's mission, resulting in their demise. It's quite plausible, isn't it? He sneers as Yunil, still reeling from the blow, stares blankly ahead. Well, Commander Cha, thank you for your service. Yun mocks, raising his hand to deliver another, potentially fatal blow. Suddenly, an energy discharge crackles in the air, reaching the ground and ejecting Shin Hyeon, who is still trying to make sense of the situation. Yun spots Shin's dark silhouette and observes closely, sensing something amiss. A die pops up. Your internal and external skills have increased to the maximum level of 50, followed immediately by another. You will return to Earth. I'm back. Shin Hyeon realizes, bursting into mad laughter. So, reaching the maximum level's reward was a return to Earth? What a ridiculous hobby. This is no prize at all. And then he begins to fulfill his promise made during his teleportation. I'll kill whoever you are. What in the are you babbling about? Shin Hyeon suddenly hears Yun's voice. He emerges out of nowhere, ready to kill someone, but he has questions. Where did you teleport from? Yun demands, continuing his interrogation. Are you a wizard? Then tell me who you work for. But Shernan remains silent, simply walking past him. Is this freak ignoring me? Yun fumes, clenching his fists in frustration. Shin Hyeon approaches the girl lying on the ground, assessing the situation. Has there been a battle to the death here? He suspects she's on the brink of death as he studies her face, trying to recall where he's seen her before. Meanwhile, Ji-moon seethes with rage. I'm in trouble, he thinks. He saw me with y'all. If I let him live, who knows what might happen? I don't know who he is, but I have to eliminate him for good. Shernan notices a familiar bracelet around the girl's neck and gently pats Yun's unconscious cheek. We've had quite the battle to the death here, Yun informs him, realizing Shernan is not in a fit state for further confrontation. Deciding to eliminate the problem before him, the scoundrel clenches his fists, emitting red energy, and launches a futile attack on Shernan from behind. But fate intervenes. His red energy is overwhelmed by the far more potent blue energy emanating from his opponent, engulfing him completely. Did you think? Shin Hyeon growls menacingly, his eyes ablaze with righteous fury, that I wouldn't notice? He mocks, you even dare to ask my name. I am the Supreme Sword Emperor Cha Shin Hyeon. Though I understand, he sneers, that means nothing to you. A beam of white energy erupts from Shin Hyeon's hand, hissing and crackling as it illuminates the surroundings, obliterating Yun's head. That's right, the hero declares, I'm Cha Shinil, Cha Yun's older brother. Gazing at his sister, the hero smiles contentedly. As a crying girl clutches her teddy bear, someone sternly asks if she plans to continue throwing tantrums and threatens to leave her behind if she doesn't stop. Meanwhile, the parents, who have moved a little away from the child, express concern as darkness begins to fall. Her older brother, whom Yunil affectionately calls Oppa, gently inquires if she truly enjoys amusement parks so much. With a smile, he advises his younger sister that continuing to be hysterical will make things difficult for mom and dad. Clutching her small fists to her chest, the girl confides in her brother, expressing her desire to see him more often. However, he reassures her, explaining that despite going away to study at the university, he'll make an effort to visit her more frequently, even driving her to the park himself. Yunil's laughter fills the air as she happily agrees to her brother's proposal. Good girl, let's head home, okay? Okay, just carry me to the car on your back. Amidst the black background, two phrases appear. Okay, I'll carry you on my back until you're all grown up. I'm not heavy. I'll carry you every day, Oppa. A wrecked car blocks the road, and Yunil can't shake the feeling that it's her fault. If she hadn't been so insistent on going to the park, she believes her parents would still be alive. She recalls herself in the back seat of the car, realizing her stubbornness led to this tragedy. Calling out for her brother, she finds no response. She blames herself for his disappearance too, knowing he wouldn't have vanished if not for her. Looking at the empty seat where her brother was seated moments ago, she only sees the unfastened seatbelt. A hand emitting a white glow hovers over the bandaged hand of the now grown-up Yunil. Awakening abruptly, she opens her eyes wide, emitting a strange sound as she struggles to catch her breath. Her brother, seated beside her, explains that he used his healing energy on her, but warns that her injuries are severe and she may have difficulty moving for a while. Confused, Yunil gazes at the other person in the room and asks who he is. Shin responds gently, realizing she doesn't recognize him. Tenderly, he holds her hand, which clutches a locket, and remarks on how much Yal has grown, acknowledging that he won't be able to give her piggyback rides anymore. Smiling warmly at his sister, he squeezes her hand affectionately. The girl gazes at Shin Hyeon with a mixture of confusion and recognition dawning in her eyes. It can't be. It's impossible, she whispers to herself, her mind swirling with disbelief. A flashback transports us to a moment from the past, where Shining had bestowed upon her the same bracelet she now wears around her neck, nestled within it a cherished picture of their family. He told Yal to be brave, even when he couldn't be there, she reminisces, her voice tinged with emotion. Tears cascade down the girl's cheeks, her anguish palpable as she clutches the locket tightly in her hand. Through her tears, she demands to know where Shernan has been all this time, resentment lacing her words. Her brother envelopes her in a gentle embrace, attempting to soothe her tumultuous emotions and acknowledging the hardships she's endured. In a sudden moment of recollection, Shin Hyeon inquires about Seo Yun, prompting his brother to reveal the grim fate of the assailant. With a matter-of-fact tone, he informs her that the culprit now lies lifeless nearby, his fate sealed. Yunil springs to her feet, momentarily forgetting her own injuries, a palpable unease gripping her. Upon learning of Shinon's decisive actions, she grapples with a wave of conflicting emotions, the realization of the gravity of the situation settling upon her. The girl seizes his hand, urgency flashing in her eyes as she urges him to leave immediately. They're inside an ordinary multi-story building, but she insists they must flee. Yunil paces her room, a sense of stagnation hanging heavy in the air. Shernan stands by her side. With a heavy heart, the girl admits they're in grave danger. Director Seo Kin will undoubtedly track them down. Seo Gangan, the merciless leader of the Dawn Guild, looms large, perched upon the aftermath of his brutal attack. Yun elucidates that he's the father of the slain Si-Yoon, a former bandit notorious for his brutality and propensity for violence. His grotesque visage flashes across the scene, Yunil revealing him to be one of Korea's top 11 ranked hunters. As the clock strikes 9 o'clock on her smartphone, a sinking feeling settles in. She missed her unconscious deadline to report the situation. Tears well in her eyes as she fears Suk Gun, now aware of his son's demise, will suspect her as the sole survivor of the disastrous raid. Shin Hyeon turns to his sister, questioning if that's her only concern. With a cheerful grin, he tousles his thick, black hair and reassures her that she needn't fret. He's more than capable of dealing with Kang-gun, just as he dispatched his son. Patting her cheeks affectionately, he declares himself the supreme emperor of the sword, dismissing any worries. Yunil admonishes her brother's arrogance, cautioning that Seo Kang-gun's formidable level surpasses 50, a testament to his prowess. Shin Hyeon, intrigued by the mention of levels in this world, finds it peculiar. Yunil erupts in a furious outcry, her face flushed with anger. She demands her brother abandon the self-aggrandizing title he just bestowed upon himself. His behavior, reminiscent of a teenager afflicted with eighth-grader syndrome, characterized by delusions of grandeur and a penchant for exaggeration, irks her deeply. The hero contemplates how to soothe his sister's distress. Yunil, her head in her hands, vents about the unfairness of life. With her parents gone and her brother missing, she feels adrift in uncertainty, resenting Shin Hyeon's sudden reappearance. Shin Hyeon approaches a photo hanging on the wall, realizing the truth behind their parents' demise. Taking charge of the conversation, he begins to explain. Yunil, standing beside the sofa in her shorts, learns of her brother's prolonged absence in a place called Murim. However, delving into the details would sidetrack from the immediate situation. Locking eyes with her, Shin Hyeon seeks clarification on the concepts of hunters, guilds, and levels in this world. Yunil is dumbfounded, extending her hand to halt her brother, cautioning that these inquiries could overwhelm her instantaneously. You hastily depart, assuring they'll address matters later, but for now, she must attend to something urgent. When her brother inquires about her destination, she reveals she's headed to the Dawn Guild, her car alarm keychain jingling. She pledges a swift return, urging him to stay put. As Shin Hyeon turns the library door handle, stepping inside, he finds everything eerily unchanged, as if he had visited just yesterday. Reflecting on his sister's recent outburst and her newfound strength during her solitary time, he scratches his chin in contemplation. Vowing to be the supportive brother she deserves after years of absence, he makes a silent commitment to himself. Shin Hyeon's realization jolts him into action. He must locate Seo Kang-gun, a threat to Yunil's safety. As he moves to investigate a noise outside the door, his senses sharpen. 3 imposing figures loom before him. One extends a hand, pulsating with a purple magic sphere, a sinister smile playing on his lips. 2 brandish swords, while the third emits a formidable energy that fills the space. A customer inquires about someone's whereabouts. Fueled by anger, Shin Hyeon addresses the questioner, recognizing him as Seo Kang-gun, leader of the Dawn Guild. With a menacing air, Kang-gun demands to know the whereabouts of Cha Yunil. A car halts in front of the administration building. Yunil, her hair dancing gracefully in the breeze, strides towards the main office of the Dawn Guild, a prominent second-generation guild in South Korea. Despite her prompt arrival, she fears Seo Kang-gun may have already taken action, possibly ordering her immediate capture upon her arrival. As she ponders whom to seek aid from, a voice calls out from behind. An attractive girl with pink hair, dressed in revealing attire, questions Yunil's presence at this hour. It's Lee Ji, the deputy leader of the Dawn Guild. Clad in her short jacket, she probes Yunil about her absence from the raid with Seo, seeking clarity on any unforeseen events during the expedition. Yunil contemplates Lee Ji's seemingly harmless demeanor, knowing she's one of the 4 most formidable hunters in South Korea. Renowned for her loyalty and honesty, Ji's true intentions remain elusive. Can I trust her? Yunil muses, her fists clenched. Realizing she has no alternative, she turns to Lee Ji for assistance. The 3 thugs fix Shin Hyeon with a menacing stare, their expressions grim. Unfazed, he confronts them, singling out the ringleader. Pointing an accusatory finger, he questions if they truly represent Kang-gun and, if so, whether their parents neglected to teach them proper manners, opting for door-knocking over door-kicking. One of the henchmen moves to attack Shin Hyeon, but Kin restrains him with a firm grip on his shoulder. Locking gazes with the hero, Kin asserts his single-minded pursuit of Cha Yunil. Shin Hyeon meets his gaze head-on, insinuating the true motive behind Kin's search. Upon hearing Shin Hyeon's accusation regarding his son's demise, Kin's eyes blaze with primal fury. Clenching his fists, He unleashes a desperate roar, crimson energy swirling around him. Meanwhile, off-screen, Lee Ji questions Yunil about her brother, who recently returned from Murim, asking if his name is truly Cha Shernil. Radiating with white energy, Shernil exudes an aura of intimidation as he confirms his identity to the enemy. He challenges Qin to witness his capabilities, goading the leader of the Dawn Guild into action. With a face twisted in rage, Qin charges at Shin Hyeon, his sword ablaze with a bright red glow. While our hero remains resolute, Lei's gaze brims with excitement as she insists on meeting Yal's brother immediately. A crimson wave of energy crashes forth like a tsunami, emanating from Kangan's sword, intent on engulfing Shernil. Observing the enemy's attempt to strike him, Shernil contemplates the mysterious power imbued within the Kjun sword. Though similar to sword energy and aura, it possesses distinct origins. Shernil scrutinizes the foe, pondering if this ability differs among humans, as referred to by Yunil as hunters. Recalling the menacing expression of the recently deceased Si-yoon, who wielded a similar red glow, Shin Hyeon realizes the usage of a peculiar power. With a chuckle, he suggests delving into research on Qin. The adversary, with his red energy-spewing sword and enigmatic expression, resembles an intriguing exhibit following a series of intricate maneuvers. As Seo Kangun advances, the notification for the warrior skill, Consecutive Strike, flashes on the screen. Shernil remains composed, calmly assessing the enemy's actions. As Kjun draws near, his pulsating sword strikes, unleashing waves of red energy that ripple outward from Shinil's head. Shin Hyeon, his arm hanging casually, comprehends the situation. At Kjun's level, currently glaring with bulging eyes, he would roughly match the prowess of a top-tier martial artist. However, Shernil remains unfazed. Effortlessly parrying the blow, he notes Kjun's confusion. The hero examines his hand, detecting a lingering external influence. It recoiled slightly, mockingly addressing the enemy and effortlessly wielding his sword. Shin Hyeon remarks that there should be countless individuals like Kjun in Korea. Witnessing their leader's struggle, guild subordinates rush to intervene, only to be met with a barrier of white light. Turning to them with indifference, Shernil requests they refrain from interfering. As he shifts his focus back to Kangun, the hero detects a newfound determination in the guild leader's gaze. Shin Hyeon's eyes gleam with red light as a potent surge of energy hurtles towards him, indicated by the sign, Wizard Skill, Ball Lightning, that appears to Kangan's companions, one of whom wields a shield. It seems victory is within their grasp. With enthusiastic shouts declaring the job done, one of them assumes a fighting stance, attempting to strike Shin. However, he merely smiles, seizing the sword blade with his hand, and calmly informs the enemy that they're moving too slowly. With a clench of his fist, the sword's blade begins to disintegrate. Bewildered, the opponent gazes at the crumbling weapon, eyes bulging in disbelief. Shin Hyeon stands proudly amidst the chaos, enveloped in swirling clouds of blue and red energy. His shaken adversary desperately tries to discern what's amiss with Shernil, while the hero nonchalantly brushes the metal crumbs from his hands. Gazing at his adversaries, Shin Hyeon recalls Yal's reminder that he was absent from this world for only 14 years. Yet, the three bandits, bearing gritted teeth and formidable skill, stand at the level of peak martial artists. Such mastery demands not only millennia of experience, but also exceptional natural talent. It's astonishing how humanity has progressed to rival Murim in just 14 years. Even Kangun, who eyes him hungrily, ranks among the world's elite peak masters. Yet, they still fall short of the top 10 martial artists. Shin Hyeon spots exceptional warriors fitting into this designated category and smiles. As far as he knows, he isn't included in the Jianghu rating. He envisions his competitors once more, this time not as mere two-dimensional figures, but as three-dimensional beings. With determination, Shin Hyeon realizes his goal, to ascend to the pinnacle of this ranking and set a new standard. Standing atop a rock emitting bursts of white energy, Shin Hyeon surveys his surroundings. Behind him lies a barren ground, upon which rests a skull, beside it an old katana bearing the scars of battle. A passenger car cruises along the evening highway, with Yunal at the wheel and Li Jide seated beside her. The heroine feels overwhelmed by the whirlwind of events unfolding around her. The deputy guild head has compelled her to attend a meeting with her brother, adding to the chaos. Li Ji, with eyes closed, ponders over Yunal's intentions. Uncertain whether she's a friend or foe, she recalls their earlier conversation in the parking lot. Yunal had offered to cover up all incidents involving Ku Young-yoon in exchange for assistance in meeting her brother. Unable to refuse, Yal had agreed to the deal. As Li Ji reflects on Shin Hyeon's intentions, she questions Yunal about his disappearance several years ago. A tear trickles down her cheek upon learning it occurred in 2011, which translates to 14 years ago. The realization strikes her deeply, contemplating how much Shin Hyeon might have evolved in that period. Amidst the somber atmosphere, the conversation in the car shifts. What kind of person is your brother? He's caring and kind, Yal reminisces from the driver's seat of the car. He even made it to a prestigious university without the aid of tutors, she adds proudly, prompting her companion to commend her brother as a true genius. Yunal's happiness radiates as she chirps about his intelligence, emphasizing his remarkable persistence. Once Shernan sets his mind to something, he relentlessly pursues it until the end. Meanwhile, Shernan gestures towards the terrified enemy, beckoning them closer. He reveals a power previously unseen in Murim, demanding its use once more. As the foe, bathed in a red glow, strikes with a sword, Shin Hyeon effortlessly counters with a fist to the face, dismissing the trick entirely. Another of Kjun's subordinates enters the fray, conjuring blue mana circles around which ice crystals swirl. Disappointed, Shernan recalls witnessing similar tricks in the ice palace of the North Sea. With a wave of his hand, he showcases the true power of that icy domain. From the clumsy manipulator of tiny icicles emerge colossal ice dragons, looming ominously over the hapless foe. Though they appear poised to devour him, they simply encase him in a solid block of ice. Witnessing the scene, the bandit with the shield tearfully pleads with the hero to spare him, attempting to flee towards the door. However, an impenetrable energy barrier emerges before him, thwarting his escape. Suddenly, a beam of light strikes him squarely in the forehead. Seo Kingun angrily reprimands his fighter for turning his back and fleeing instead of using his shield to confront the enemy head-on. Shernan, positioned behind the guild leader, raises a cautionary finger and remarks with a smile that the bandits likely lack the concept of loyalty. Seo Kingun scrutinizes his adversary with intense eyes, trying to discern his identity. Ice magic, barriers, finger magic. Is he a wizard? But a wizard wouldn't have been able to withstand my attack. Surveying the room, Qin, wielding his massive sword, notes that despite the intense battle, the surroundings remain undamaged. Could it be just an illusion? He queries the seemingly indifferent character about the nature of his defenses and whether they were specifically prepared for their arrival. Shernan calmly elucidates that he enveloped the entire area with his mental sword to prevent the insignificant bandits from soiling the floors of his abode. Reflecting on his past as he stood majestically on a rock in another world, the hero expresses his bewilderment at Qin's unparalleled efficiency. With a smile, he reveals that the moment the bandits trespassed into his domain, they entered territory under his control. In response, Qin, emanating intense bursts of red energy, brands Shernan a monster and vows that if he perishes, it will be alongside him. His eyes gleam with an unsettling light as the telltale sign of a berserk skill materializes. Qin widens his mouth, hoists his sword, and unleashes an unintelligible battle cry, triggering another berserk state. Undisturbed, Shernan calmly questions who the true monster is. Is it not Qin, who has vastly augmented his strength and seeks mutual destruction with his adversary? However, Qin is beyond hearing. He charges at the hero, accepting the challenge. Desperately swinging his sword, Qin only manages to etch red circles around Shernan, unable to land a blow. The guild leader stood before us, resembling a mindless beast. On the ground lay a sword aglow with blue energy, its tip broken off by Shernan moments earlier. The hero picks it up, reassuring the distraught enemy that he will demonstrate respect. With a swift swing, Shin Hyeon delivers a powerful blow, causing the enemy's blood to spatter in all directions. Kin, his face returning to human form, lets out a piercing scream. Turning away, the hero somberly informs the enemy of the great honor bestowed upon him. A strike from the Supreme Sword Emperor. Holding his head, Shin Hyeon explains the significance of the blow. Outside the door, women's voices are heard. "This is my home. I apologize for the intrusion," Shin Hyeon declares. Lee Ji and Yoonyeol, shocked by the scene before them, stand witness. Indignantly, Yoonyeol demands to know what has happened to her house and why the front door is in such disarray. Shin Hyeon, who has stacked the corpses beside the locker and hasn't yet had a chance to clean the blood from the floor, anticipates the impending scandal. Humbly, he requests leniency for the unconventional housewarming celebration, but his sister remains incensed. Baffled by the bloody scene, Yoonyeol questions why the housewarming party turned out so violent and asks if the hero intends to keep causing trouble. Meanwhile, Lee Ji casts a peculiar glance at Shin Hyeon, her expression hinting at something extraordinary. Sensing a connection between her inner skill and the heavenly origin martial arts, Shin Hyeon and Lee Ji feel as though they stand amidst a celestial expanse, surrounded by gentle golden streams of magical energy. Sha Shin-young SSI wonders if Ji is contemplating something, and upon receiving her message, he telepathically queries about the girl capable of sound transmission. Still wearing a charming expression as she gazes at the hero, Lee Ji muses whether he truly believes he was the sole presence at that moment, leaving Shin Hyeon to stare at her in astonishment. Inside the typical urban high-rise building, Yoonyeol awakens to sunlight spilling across her face as she lies in bed. Bewilderment clouds her features as she springs from bed, clad in pajamas, and scans her apartment. With her brother absent, Yeon's distress is palpable. Shin Hyeon appears at the window with a smile, teasing her for waking up so early. Though the girl looks at him with a hint of fear, she warmly responds. Bathed in the morning sunlight, Yeol realizes that this isn't a dream and questions her brother's early awakening. Shin Hyeon glances at his phone screen, asking his sister to wait a moment, to which she agrees. The hero reads the text message and then steps away, promising to return shortly. Looking out the window, Yoonyeol notices a car waiting to pick up her brother, the driver patiently awaiting Shin Hyeon's approach. Despite a week passing since his return, she still struggles to believe it's real. Deputy Guild leader Lee Ji mentioned he left nothing behind before vanishing, suggesting a possible future meeting. Shortly after, individuals in black suits arrive at the apartment to retrieve the bodies of Seo Kang-gun and his henchmen. The following day, the news broadcasted Seo Yeon's death alongside Seo Kang-gun's resignation and disappearance. Lee Ji kept her promise. As Yoonyeol observes her brother receiving a bow from the car driver, her thoughts drift. Being the sole survivor of the Red Wolf Cave raid, she now faces a prolonged probationary period within the guild, shouldering responsibility for herself. Today, Lee Ji contacted her brother. What's she planning? Yoonyeol wonders, her expression anxious as she continues to gaze out the window. She fervently hopes for Shin Hyeon's safe return as he's already boarded the car. Elsewhere, Leahi sits at a restaurant table, taking a sip from her cup when she hears Shin Hyeon's voice. He remarks on the apparent vulnerability of the girl standing before them in this world. The hero asserts that someone is constantly keeping an eye on her. Lee Ji chuckles joyfully, clarifying that it's not surveillance but rather security. Shin Hyeon takes a sip of his tea, surprised by its flavor. The girl notices his reaction and confirms that it's indeed Hunin Yainen, a tea she used to enjoy during her visits to Hanam. She adds with a smile that this occurred, of course, in Murim. The hero reciprocates the smile, impressed by Lee Ji's adeptness at getting straight to the point. Peering into her cup, Lee Ji shares her intel. 3 individuals have returned from Murim, Shin Hyeon himself, and the leader of the Twilight Guild, Park Tun. His guild, alongside the Daeong Guild, stands as one of the most influential forces in the Korea Hunter Association. Although the two powers harbor mutual disdain, Lee Ji has maintained contact with Tong for some time and uncovered something intriguing about him. Once more, the camera focuses on the loose seatbelt in the car, the one from which Shin Hyeon vanished. Lee Ji begins his narrative. In 2011, Park Tun awoke in a peculiar cave. Within it lay a tome titled, The Art of Cultivating Heavenly Origin Martial Art Hearts. Emerging from the cave, he discovered himself in a realm known as Murim. It's the same experience we've had, Li Ji remarks. A prompt appears. Do you wish to return to your home world? Second, if so, and third, bear witness to the end of this world. Cut to a figure standing atop a rocky outcrop overlooking a vast expanse of green forest. It's Shernon, Lei confirms, continuing the tale with a composed demeanor. Shernon returned many years later, by which time his world had transitioned into an era of hunters and dungeons. The catalyst behind this transformation remains unknown, whether a deity or a nefarious mastermind, but it's clear that the world's metamorphosis and the transportation of individuals to Murim are intertwined. Shernon gazes pensively into the distance, trying to comprehend the information he's just received. The girl continues her narrative. 14 years ago, following a divine revelation from the goddess, we glimpsed this otherworldly being with a serene countenance and flowing hair. Dungeons, monsters, and hunters began to emerge. The class and skill system closely resembles the role-playing games played by Ji, Shernon, and their peers during childhood. The hero recalls the terrifying monsters and valiant heroes he once controlled in those games, but desires to inquire about something more pressing. How did both she and Park Tun return to Earth? Surprised by his question, the girl responds matter-of-factly, seemingly unfazed by her own death. Didn't the same thing happen to you? She asks, bewildered. As Shernon's frustration mounts, culminating in him slamming his fist onto the table, gripping her teacup tightly, cracks begin to spiderweb across its surface. We were told, he muses, to witness the end of this world, yet events unfolded differently. An unkind smile tugs at his lips as he realizes he's caught the goddess off guard. Recollections of the trials he endured in that world flood his mind. I wonder, he muses, if this goddess knows who sent us to Murim and for what purpose? The ultimate reward for mastering the highest level of martial arts in that world was the opportunity to return to Earth. Shin Hyeon expresses gratitude to Miley. Considering this, the hero grins, realizing that the answer to his question lies in what reward awaits those who reach the pinnacle of being a hunter in this world. Assuming the goddess doesn't wish to lose face, Lei observes the hero with surprise but swiftly steers the conversation, asking the girl why she decided to meet him after all. After giving him a pleasant smile, she suggests they take a walk. She explains that the Dawn Guild had a long-standing feud with Park Tun, or rather, the Twilight Guild. They cautiously confronted them, unsure of what could go wrong. As they stroll on the green lawn, Lei leads slightly ahead, with Shin Hyeon trailing behind. Then director Seo King-gun died, she continues. Turning to her companion, she meets his gaze squarely, stating that he was the one who killed the central figure of the Dawn Guild, and thus must take responsibility. Please join our guild, the girl implores, placing her hand over her heart and smiling charmingly. She offers him a position in the company's management, promising him boundless wealth and fame. Rubbing his head, Shin Hyeon acknowledges that he shouldn't dismiss such an offer, especially coming from his sister's boss. However, he meets Li Ji's gaze squarely and asserts that she should give up on recruiting him. When pressed for a reason, he turns away and asserts his preference for working alone. With that, the hero distances himself from the girl, expressing his dissatisfaction with serving someone weaker than himself. Li Ji regards him silently before suggesting they settle the matter of strength, considering the opportune situation. They stand in a spacious clearing beneath a lush green tree. You see, she explains, a year in Murim equates to a decade in this world, meaning you've spent 140 years there. The hero strokes his chin thoughtfully, conceding to Li Ji's point. Age and skill don't always correlate, she adds. Shin Hyeon smiles and agrees with her sentiment. Even if someone spent 300 years in Murim, they wouldn't match his prowess. Or so he believes. Li Ji's form shifts as she extends her hand, emanating crimson-colored energy. The open command initiates. A crimson stream extends from Lei to Shin, bending the grass in its path to the ground. It culminates in a crimson sphere that suddenly looms before Shinny, resembling an eye hovering over the lawn. Gradually intensifying, it emits a brighter and more potent glow. We witness the original skill of Dijahi, shadow dance. The girl elucidates to the hero that he is now in a state of observation. His senses are muted, enveloping him in darkness. The impact radius spans about 50 meters. Replicating this large-scale skill through the laws of physics would demand considerable time and energy. "This is one of my original skills," she remarks, showcasing its impressive effect as the lawn fades into darkness. "Impressive, isn't it?" she adds. We find ourselves in a pocket dimension mirroring real space, as Li Ji elucidates. From the outside, it would seem as if they suddenly vanished, perfectly illustrated by the empty clearing before us. "In Murim, I was known as Blood Plum Blossom, fulfilling all my assassination contracts," Li reveals as she slowly approaches the hero in her high heels. Shin Hyeon smiles knowingly, understanding that he's dealing with a formidable assassin. She likely engages in lethal combat with calculated precision. Escaping from this dimension would be no easy feat. The girl, wielding a sword in her hands, issues a chilling ultimatum: "Either you break me, or you die," as she advances towards Shin Hyeon, enveloped in the aura of her crimson energy, wearing a confident smile. The hero admits to feeling a sense of dread at this brazen display of intent to kill in broad daylight. However, he discerns that this skill serves a purpose beyond mere entrapment. Surrounded by the radiance of her energy, Li Ji closes the distance to the hero, her expression bearing an uncanny intensity. Meeting his gaze squarely, she confirms his insight. Shin Hyeon returns her gaze with equal intrigue, narrowly evading a lethal strike as Li Ji's weapon leaves behind a crimson trail. The girl wields a dagger in each hand, launching a flurry of attacks. Yet Shin Hyeon deftly parries or evades each blow, either with his bare hands or through nimble footwork, reminiscent of their previous encounter. But the girl shows no signs of relenting. Her strikes are swift and relentless, showcasing her prowess as an exceptional warrior. The pressure she exerts on the hero is formidable, forcing him to crouch defensively. Shin Hyeon observes her movements, noting the dagger in each hand and her distinctive battle style, a reverse grip that echoes the signature technique of the greatest assassin in Murim, known as the Dark King. Li Ji radiates with energy, especially her left eye, which glows with a blood moonlight road. Acknowledging his astute observation, Shin Hyeon confirms, "You've grasped it in an instant." In response, the girl remarks, "I've simply encountered someone who wielded this skill before." The hero recounts with a smile, "But at that time, I was somewhat inexperienced and accidentally ended up killing my opponent." Li Ji's expression twists with alarm as Shin Hyeon reassures her that, since she has spent less time in Murim than he has, he will permit her to use 3 fighting styles against him. If she manages to defeat him, he pledges to join the Dawn Guild. The girl, still gripping her daggers, hears the hero's request to demonstrate her first style. Clenching her weapons tightly, Li Ji agrees to the suggestion, then closes her eyes and envelopes herself in a cloud of purple smoke. Shin Hyeon observes her actions closely, but despite being nearby, she eludes his senses entirely. The impression of her vanishing into thin air is simply astonishing. Could this ability also be part of her skill? Bright lights flash around the startled hero, shrouded in smoke. Shin Hyeon watches with keen interest as the lights fade, followed by a barrage of stones hurtling from the now empty space. They fly toward the hero through the fog, becoming clearer and clearer, forming a hail of shrapnel with seemingly no escape. Yet, Shin Hyeon knows how to defend himself. His hand begins to glow with white energy, and with a single effort, streams of energy rush in all directions, creating a protective sphere around him. Shin deflects the rockfall, his glowing hand fading. He acknowledges her efforts, but warns of the impending danger as Leahi lunges at him with daggers. However, Shin remains composed, informing the enraged Leahi that this is the second style. Leahi, wielding her glinting daggers, continues, referencing the late master Lujayat, who died at 15 and acknowledges Shin Hyeon as the true Sha'in master. Shin, seemingly disinterested, begrudgingly agrees, much to Leahi's annoyance. He acts unfazed, aggravating her further. The ground in the pocket dimension is pierced by spikes of red energy. Leahi ominously questions Shin, asking if killing him will make her the strongest in Murim. Shin, unfazed, stands among the energy pillars, stating he has no response. 53 stands out magnificently against the backdrop of iridescent energy streams she conjures, her eyes now only revealing whites. Suddenly, a notification flashes, assassin skill, shadow dagger. Lee Ji-hee widens his stance, crouches low, and directs shimmering streams toward his opponent. These pillars converge from various directions toward Shin Hyeon's position. Amidst the spectacle, a bright light enveloped by a faintly glowing sphere appears, bearing the inscription, Sword of Reason. The light erupts into a brilliant flash, as white and red energies clash at a single point. A tendril reaches out to 53, wrapping around her as she conjures a massive block of stone, poised to crush her. Drenched in cold sweat, she realizes her body is unresponsive, feeling as if she is being squeezed from all sides. Meanwhile, Shin Hyeon raises his hand, causing an avalanche of glowing white energy stones to rise into the air. The third style did not work, the hero remarks to the utterly shocked girl. "Do you want to continue?" he asks. Defeated, 53 lowers her daggers and concedes. The pocket dimension collapses, revealing a tranquil forest clearing. Shin Hyeon calmly observes 53, who, still holding her red daggers, declares she won't insist on sparring any longer but asks him one thing in return. She inquires about Shin Hyeon's technique, admitting that at one point, it felt like she was battling an unbeatable entity. The hero, sitting cross-legged on the ground, explains that 53 did the right thing by acting confidently in the pocket dimension. Her powers are sufficient to defeat even the strongest of ordinary opponents. Ordinary. 53 can't believe her ears. "What realm have you reached?" she asks, clutching the hilt of her dagger. The hero doesn't answer directly. Instead, he remarks on the impressive combination of her martial arts and inherent skills. He admits he found satisfaction in their battle warm-up and accepts the offer 53 made. The Dawn Guild will provide him with material support and information, and in return, he will lend his power to the organization. Raising a finger to emphasize his point, he sets a single condition. He will operate as an independent party, not directly reporting to the guild. 53 listens attentively, placing her hand on her face in contemplation. The hero clarifies that this arrangement can be seen as a union. He doesn't want to be subordinate to anyone but won't refuse help. 53 agrees, but asks Shin Hyeon to promise one thing. Under no circumstances should he cooperate with the Twilight Guild. After bowing, the hero makes his promise. He extends his hand and says, "I swear by my title of Supreme Sword Emperor." 53 thinks to herself, how pretentious, but shakes his hand nonetheless. The hero also requests to be removed from surveillance. He tolerated it because of his sister, but now that his relationship with the guild has changed, he wants it to end. Understanding the subtle hint, 53 assures him that the organization will not do anything to jeopardize their relationship. "And one more thing," the hero says lightly, pulling up his sleeve. "I apologize for what happened before." He hands a piece of cloth to 53, who is initially puzzled by his gesture. "This is for teasing you, joking about the 3 styles and so on. I just wanted to see the true skills of a peak master and a high-level hunter." Shin Hyeon looks at 53, and his sincerity is evident in his expression. "Cha Shin Hung SSI," 53 responds, "I appreciate your words, but it's okay. Thanks to your bullying, I was able to fight you to kill you." "Then it's no wonder you were aiming for vital organs," the hero remarks. He then asks 53 why she decided to become an assassin. "Have you ever thought about it?" he inquires. Lei replies that when she made her choice, she was desperate to kill someone. The hero looks away, saying nothing. A series of system messages appear. "Do you want to go back to your old world? If you do, reach the end of this world." Gazing thoughtfully into the distance, Shin Hyeon tells her that he understands what she's talking about. It's all he thinks about. An expensive black car is parked on a dirt road in the middle of the forest. A driver in a formal suit sits in the driver's seat, checking his watch. He notices something in the rearview mirror. Wei struggles to get into the car, and the driver asks if she's okay. From his vantage point, he saw the deputy guild leader using shadow dance. 53 replies that this move didn't even scratch Shin Hyeon. The driver exclaims that this is impossible, but 53 says her opponent was simply incredible. Her stamina and mana reserves are practically at zero. She looks out the window thoughtfully, noting that despite the intense fight, Shin Hyeon never even attacked her. She has no idea what he did to stop her blades. A tired Shin Hyeon returns home. As soon as he enters the door, Yal throws herself into his chest. Surprised, the hero asks his sister why she's behaving this way. "Do you want to flatten me?" he asks, trying to look her in the eye, but she roughly hushes him. Finally, Yal calms down and tearfully begs Shin Hyeon not to leave like that anymore. She pleads with him to avoid dangerous activities and just stay home. Shin Hyeon realizes his sister is afraid and terrified that he will disappear again as he did when he was a child. "I know how you feel," Shin Hyeon says, stroking her head. "But I'm thinking of becoming a hunter," he adds happily. Yal is horrified. "Do you really want to die?" she asks. Before them is a semi-transparent mystical cube that Shin Hyeon received from 53. Sitting comfortably on the sofa beneath a picture of a zebra, Shin Hyeon informs his sister that 53 told him this crystal would also provide him with a hunter status window. Ignoring Yal's comment that his stubbornness should be channeled more positively, Shin Hyeon picks up the mystical cube and suggests they test it. The crystal looks mesmerizing. Shin Hyeon gazes at it enthusiastically, unable to contain his excitement. Suddenly, doubt creeps into Shin Hyeon's eyes. He asks his sister if she's ever noticed a tendency to cheat on her boss. Yunil advises her brother to summon the status window, and he sees two information windows in front of him. He says the required command. The yellow window, visible only to him, is the status window from M, showing the maximum 100th level of the character operating in this world. But the blue one, Shin Hyeon thinks, is the hunter status window. It reports that he is at level 1, with no class, and has 1 point to distribute among the 0 values of strength, stamina, agility, intuition, and spirit. Yunil, standing behind him, urges her brother to pay attention to the class listed in the window. It says, "No class." "I thought so." The girl laughs happily. "Oppa doesn't have to be a hunter." When asked why she decided to explain this, Yunil responds in detail. She explains that hunters are divided into 6 classes: warriors, shieldmen, wizards, clerics, marksmen, and assassins. At higher levels, of course, the classifications become more complex, but these are the basic classes. Yal herself, for example, has a shooter class and a high-ranking one at that, sniper. She points directly at her shocked brother's face, emphasizing that he has no class. That means he didn't receive any class. He's essentially a random character, generic. Naturally, he can still become a hunter, but the problem lies in his skills. Yunil tells her frustrated brother, while inwardly hoping to dissuade him, that hunters level up with experience points. She explains that he'll need to spend these points on skills to fight monsters. A hunter without a class obtains skills from the cube, while others have them predetermined. For example, the cheapest skill is a hand-to-hand combat technique, costing 20 million. A sword technique costs 25 million. Shin Hyeon is visibly shocked by these figures, unable to conceal his surprise. Hunters with a class. Yunil begins, leaving the implication hanging in the air. She hopes Shin Hyeon will reconsider his plans in light of the challenges he faces without a predetermined class. Yunil continues, explaining that hunters with a class automatically acquire skills as they level up, while non-classed individuals like Shin Hyeon are compelled to constantly invest in purchasing them. "Oppa," she cautiously asks her brother, her eyes gleaming slightly, "do you have that kind of money?" Shin Hyeon looks at her and admits, much to his sister's disappointment, that he has a very generous sponsor, 53, who can provide him with billions. "If I hadn't formed this alliance," the hero reflects, "I would have faced significant difficulties." But it's not just about money, he realizes. In the absence of a class, as his sister pointed out, are they implying that he, a genius unmatched in all of Mir's history, is essentially a useless hunter? What a blow to his pride. Meanwhile, a comical bunny hops on the green grass. The scene unfolds in the Chuck Mountains, within the guild's training dungeon. However, the rodent's cute facade quickly fades. Its fur transforms into a monstrous visage. This won't be an easy challenge. Yunel swiftly fires an arrow, and the creature vanishes in a bright orange flash. "See, Oppa," she says to her brother. He realizes that she must exert considerable effort to handle just one monster. Pointing to the rabbit's corpse, Yunel cautions her brother that novice hunters who share his mindset often meet unfortunate ends. However, Shin Hyeon notices a red crystal on the grass and, bending down to inspect its objects, determines that nothing like that will happen to him. Picking up the red crystal, Shin Hyeon examines it and asks his sister if this moonstone can really bring him money. Yunel affirms this, explaining that it's a natural resource that doesn't pollute and contains an immense amount of energy. She adds that nuclear power plants were gradually decommissioned after the appearance of monsters on Earth because of it. However, she advises her brother to be cautious. Even though he's a skilled martial artist, anything can happen inside the dungeon. To her amazement, Yunel observes Shin Hyeon effortlessly lifting 3 birds into the air with a flick of his hand. "My words fly in one ear and out the other," she thinks. Meanwhile, Shin Hyeon examines his finger and remarks that, as expected, if he defeats monsters with martial arts, he won't receive experience points. A status window confirms this observation. Scratching his chin, the hero focuses on the only icon displayed in the window. Perhaps he should have asked 53 for a different skill, he thinks. Before him is the information card, Dagger Techniques. It explains that this is a passive skill that doesn't consume any mana. With a rarity of D, it's accessible to anyone. Additionally, there's the CHA skill DIE, acquired quite recently, a warrior class skill enabling the use of daggers and advanced attack techniques exclusive to dagger weaponry. Yal indignantly calls her brother shameless. Who else would receive a free skill after completing a training dungeon? Meanwhile, Shin Hyeon is absorbed in pondering over the information contained in the card. D rank, he muses. "I don't know what kind of agreement you made with 53, Yunel says irritably, but you need to be cautious with her. She'll try to exploit you for everything you've got." The hero pays no attention to his sister's warnings, lost in thought. She realizes that Shin Hyeon isn't listening to her and calls out the name she used as a child. "Appa, why are you?" She tries to reach out to her brother,